Hello, everyone, and welcome to the one, the only, the exciting Innovation Coffee, where the coffee is hot and the innovation is hotter. I'm bringing that one back. Today, we have a very exciting episode planned for you. By the way, I am Robert Wolf, your host. And yes, so if you didn't read the description or the title of this episode, it is the community update for 96Boards with Sahaj Sarup. Now, Sahaj and I go way back, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to reminisce on some old times because we used to work together at Linaro, and some exciting things have happened around Linaro and, of course, 96Boards. So we have a cool stuff planned for that. Before we dive into that segment, however, I would like to update you on some breaking news. Are we going to hit the button? I don't know. Awesome. I wasn't sure if we were going to do that this time. Cool. Breaking news. The DevSummit competition is officially live. So you're able to now start your projects and get involved, get engaged, start participating in this amazing competition. There's all sorts of cool prizes and all sorts of really fun stuff to participate in. Another interesting development here is that we actually launched our own Discord server. And I'm going to share this link. We didn't have it prepared here, but I'm going to share this link right here. So we have a new official ARM software developer Discord server. There we go. We got it posted up there. So if you want to go, we have the vanity link all ready for you. Discord.gg/ARM software dev. This is another addition to the ARM software developer portfolio. As you know, we have our Twitter, we have this YouTube channel. So we're trying to build this all-encompassing ecosystem for our ARM developers to interact and have some fun and build stuff and collaborate together on. Now, a really cool aspect about this Discord server is that we're also able to support you developers in all sorts of ARM related topics. So as we start building out this server, we're going to start finding the things that our developers are most interested in. We can start building out more channels and have ways for us at ARM to engage with the developers and help you out and support you. On top of that, with DevSummit right around the corner, devsummit.arm.com. Don't forget to check that out. Registrations are going to start opening up soon. You'll be able to join this Discord server and get the hallway track experience that a virtual environment doesn't usually provide. We'll have it available on the platform as well. So there'll be all sorts of really cool community and engaging ways to or things to do to engage on the platform for DevSummit. But you can also come and join us on Discord. We have all sorts of interesting channels to use for the DevSummit event. And we have a competition. As I mentioned, we have this cool competition that launched. And so there's also a competition channel there with live support from the folks that are hosting this competition for you to seek support during this cool thing that's going alongside the DevSummit. Now, without further ado, let me check my notes just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So yeah, I'll say real quick. I did mention prizes. Some of the prizes involve first prize, the $5,000 prize. Second prize, the $3,000 prize. Third prize is the $1,000 prize. And I'm not going to really dive too deep into this. We did a nice showcase of this competition last week. So we had Rob Morey, one of the people who's leading the competition, on the show last week. If you want to check that out, have an extra hour in your day, you can find it in the first 10 or 15 minutes or so of the episode from last week. We'll share that link as well. Go watch last week's episode. We did a deep dive into what this whole competition is and how you can participate. So I think that's it for my updates today. And I also think it's time to bring in our featured guest. So Sahaj Sarup is an engineer, software developer at Linaro. Hello, Sahaj, welcome.
Hello.
Gosh, it's been so long. Every time you and I get to hang out online, your beard gets longer, your hair gets longer. You're just having a blast with that, aren't you?
Yeah.
I can't keep up. By the time it gets to a certain length for me, it starts getting too itchy. I got to start trimming it down.
But as soon as it's time to get out of the house, when all of this is over, this will get much shorter. But till then, I can have all the fun.
You're looking good, my friend. And I'm very excited because I'm looking behind you and I see all sorts of engineering stuff, like stuff that I just want to dig through. You could pretty much build an arsenal of robots, couldn't you?
I already have an arsenal of robots. My drones, my rovers, a couple other things up there. A
You re- did
robotic arm on my other side.
Did you rebuild the Rover that I destroyed? Better?
No, I have a better one, and
A better one.
I have a one that can hurt your foot the next time you try to kick it.
Oh, it's on. It's on. I am the destroyer of robots, for those of you who don't know. So Sahaj, I want to first, you and I obviously know each other. We go way back. We can talk about that in a minute, but I'd like you to first give us your origin story. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at Linaro, and kind of give us that overall?
I think
Sahaj.
the best explanation of what I do at Leonor is I'm a professional maker. I'm responsible of getting as many projects and demos out for our partners as possible, and show the capabilities of our boards. So that's basically it. Apart from handling the community, the documentation and all that stuff. Yeah.
I remember being at 96Boards. It's really hard to just wear a single hat.
Yeah.
Because it is a small segment of Linaro. And so, you have documentation to take care of, you have your community to take care of. And then of course you have your engineering duties, your professional maker duties. And so you're a well-rounded engineer, I'd have to say, to be able to handle all that stuff. So very cool. Now, before we go into the main segment, which is talking about Linaro and talking about 96Boards and giving this community update, we like to go through what we call an icebreaker round. So this is the cue for Innovation Coffee Cribs. I love that. It's just so catchy. Innovation Coffee Cribs is where we explore the cool things that our featured guest has on their desk, as well as maybe any other cool things they have in their surroundings. So, Sahaj, what kind of cool stuff can you share with us? Hold it up to the camera, talk to us about it. What do you got?
Yeah, talking about the spiritual evolution of the carbon rover. This thing here comes in two parts. So this is the base of the next rover I'm building. It's really heavy and it's huge. And the idea with this one is and this entire part, the base is the powertrain. It's only responsible to providing power and controlling the wheels. And the idea with this one is you can actually layer it up. Currently, I just have the two layers, the powertrain and the main control board. And you layer it up and you connect it with these wires, these ribbon cables, and you layer up as you want. So maybe add an FPGA on top, add some other sort of accelerator on top, change out the microcontroller, and the base stays the same. So really an experimental platform. But if you want to try and kick this 10 kilo behemoth, Robert, it's it's on.
So to kind of iterate on that story.
Yeah.
So Sahaj made a carbon rover. We were out in Thailand, and one of the things that
No, Hong Kong.
Was it Hong Kong?
Yeah,
It was Hong Kong. You're right.
2017.
Man, we used to travel the world together. Wasn't that a blast? So yeah, we were in Hong Kong. When you travel so much, you don't even remember which crazy cool place in the world you were. But yeah, so we were in Hong Kong, and we're going to talk about these events that Linaro does. They do 2 events every year. It's called Linaro Connect. And so Sahaj and I had the opportunity to go to all these cool places. Sahaj built one of these carbon rovers. Carbon is a 96 board. It's an IoT Spec 96 board. I think he's going to try holding one up to the camera here. And he put this on a little rover. There you go, that little red board right there. Yeah. And it was able to detect with, I believe it was ultrasonic sensors, distances. And then they were these ultrasonic sensors were all around the rover, and it would just automatically run. And when it approached a certain distance to an object, it would adjust, turn around, and go about its business doing something else, kind of like what a Roomba robot does, those vacuum cleaners. So we decided to play soccer with the robot, right? So, it's coming towards me. I put my foot out and I adjust my feet until finally it turns around and then heads back towards Sahaj. Well, I freaked out and kicked the robot, destroyed it. End of story. And I am now Robert, destroyer of Sahaj's robots. So we won't do that for this one.
Yeah. have a blog post for that one ready.
Yeah. What else you got to show us?
Right. So talking about that, this is something that I'm very sort of proud of figuring it out. You can actually take a basic Xbox controller, attach an Arduino Nano, Uno, or Nano, that would work as well, and you get these host shields called uh, HMI shields. I'm not sure on that name, but basically you can add your USB port to it, and then you just have and a wireless UART, so HC12s. You just have a wireless radio control gamepad, and that's how I've started to control all my rovers. So this has been kind of a handy kit. Every time I want to make any sort of a robot, I don't need to create a controller for it. I just have this already.
Very nice. Yeah, so you can just connect that single controller to all of your rovers. You're kind of standardizing that remote for it.
Yeah.
The universal robotics remote. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I know that I don't want to eat up too much time on this icebreaker segment because there are other opportunities during this particular show that we're going to get to show you all sorts of cool hardware on. We have a show and tell coming up, and then we're going to talk about these specs. So we're going to get opportunities to talk about all this stuff. Now, for the people in the audience and the people who are watching this later on demand, I think we have to first talk about Linaro, right? Because 96Boards is a part of Linaro. So maybe Sahaj, could you just kind of tell us a little bit about Linaro and what Linaro does?
So Linaro started a long time ago when the ARM support on Linux was all here and there. It was all around. No one was standardizing on anything. So Linaro formed to basically solve that problem. It's an organization that brings together ARM vendors, whether they are OEMs or SOC vendors or any other sort of vendors who's indirectly or directly involved dealing with ARM to make a standardized software platform, mostly around Linux, but also around RTOSes like Zephyr or Android and everything in between. So that's what our core engineering is.
Yeah, Linaro, I remember. So, back in the day talking about these standardizations, and I'll say this again, I used to work at Linaro, right? So I worked at Linaro from 2016. I think it was February 2016 until October 2019. And I had a blast. I mean, that company is awesome. And, to reiterate on what Sahaj said is, back in the day, ARM processors, ARM chipsets, they were pretty much mobile only. And,
Yep.
mobile devices, tablets started coming out. You had this kind of mobile platform adoption that was ARM only. And then people started to say, oh, we want to be able to develop freely. We want more open source support. We want more stuff going on with ARM. We want these developer boards. We want to be able to develop more freely. And so Linaro came on, and there's a rumor that Linaro stands for Linux on ARM. At least that's what I was told. So Linux on ARM was kind of that big push back in those days. And since then, they've launched all sorts of really cool initiatives. And for those of you who would like to explore more about Linaro, linaro.org, right? That's the website, linaro.org. So go read more about Linaro. We're not going to deep dive into that. Now, 96Boards, a part of Linaro. What is 96Boards? What does the 96 mean?
96 is 64 plus 32.
There you go.
So we serve both 64-bit and 32-bit ARM platforms. Maybe 128-bit in future. We'll see what to do with the name when that happens. But yeah. So 96Boards started as a standardized specification. Linaro already started to standardize the software side of things. 96Boards aim to standardize the hardware side of things for development purposes. And basically, it's a part to product situation where we are made up of a group of steering committee members, and they are mostly SOC vendors, some are manufacturers, and we aim to create this hardware platform where anyone who is developing a new product can buy a bunch of these boards. So maybe they want to try with different SoCs or different accelerators, whether they want an NPU and an FPGA or just one purely ARM platform, and then have their development hardware built on via mezzanines. And once they've chosen the sock, they can buy the socks separately and create a product around it.
Yeah. So I want to touch on this a little bit more because, again, let's go back into history a bit,
Yeah.
right? And this was one of the pitches, or at least one of the history lessons I used to give when I was with 96 boards. Back in the day, people, when they wanted to develop on ARM, when they wanted to grab a ARM developer device, they had to pay a lot of money, or they had to wait a long time to get these devices in their hands. They weren't like mass
Mhm.
producing these devices, so they couldn't charge less. And then when you needed them, they had to kind of like one-off make them for you. And so 96 boards came into the mix to kind of try and reduce these lead times and reduce the costs by bringing partners together. So you bring the manufacturer, you bring the distributor, and then you bring the chip maker. You bring all three of these people together. You use the 96 board specification and you build out a device. And if you build enough of these devices, you can lower the cost. If you're working with the right distributors, you can get it out to the developers quickly. And so 96 boards kind of changed the game, I think,
Yeah.
for this kind of stuff. So very awesome. So now that you all know about 96 boards and Linaro, and by the way, you have linaro.org, you also have 96boards.org, so you can go explore both of those. But now that we know about both of these boards, both of these companies, I guess you could call company and then, group within the company, let's kind of, can you catch me up? Because I've been out of the loop with 96 boards, and not on purpose, by the way. I love 96 boards.
Yeah.
What's happened in the last 18 months? Like what are some highlights that, you can fill me in on? I just got hired back at 96 boards and I want to know, catch me up.
We've been working a lot. I think the biggest change is that we've been integrated into Linaro a bit more. We used to work as a completely separate group. Now it's that every individual employee that worked at the 96 boards group is now a part of a larger team at Linaro. So I'm now part of the STG team, or System Technologies group, and Yang's part of TPM. They're like a bunch of directors doing all the high level stuff for Linaro, and Joyce, who is our who was a project lead, is now part of the business team, and we still work for for the common purpose of 96 boards. And it's just we are more integrated. We have access to more resources, more engineers, and yeah, from an engineering point, now we are more integrated. Now slowly you will see more announcement where from a technical or a more how do I put it, well, yeah, from a project wise and focus wise, we are going to be more one with Linaro, and hopefully go in the same direction, accelerate both.
That's great. That's great. And you
Yeah.
did mention that 96 boards is still guided by the steering committee, right? Maybe you
Yes.
could talk a
Yes.
little bit about the steering committee and how they contribute to the 96 boards specification, while simultaneously giving us a segue into the specification topic.
Yeah. Sure. So the birth of a specification or the modification of one is basically we send out a letter. We say here's an open letter to everyone within the Linaro employee, or the entire organization, and just go, this is what we want, this is what our old spec looked like, we want new things, and everyone suggests a bunch of stuff. Now the steering committee will sit and decide about like which stuff gets accepted, which stuff gets optional, and I'll talk a bit more about what's optional in the spec we do, what's required, and how the entire spec is shaped, because everyone has separate requirements. We do need to bring them together in a more sensible manner. So yeah, steering committee is that overarching body that um, that directs 96 boards to move in a particular direction.
Great. Yeah. So I want to share my screen here real quick. I'm going to pull this up and we'll bring this in. So, we've been talking about these specifications, right? 96 boards. I think, at least I was approached by this a lot when I was over there. 96 boards isn't, I mean, maybe I'm going to say this wrong, and please, Sahaj, correct me, but 96 boards isn't really a product. Like 96 boards
No.
doesn't make boards, right? 96 boards writes specifications so that they can bring the right people together in the industry to make the boards. And so I just kind of want to run through this real quick. And Sahaj, maybe you can kind of talk to us as I scroll down this list. Could you tell us a little bit about each one of these specifications that 96 boards pushes out?
Yeah. So the first one on the screen is the consumer edition. It's the most basic and straightforward spec. It's aimed at mobile development, and can be based. It's more general than the others, but it's mainly focused on mobile SoCs, the ones that go into smartphones. But we have seen boards that have come up with more industrial grade socks and other things as well. So again, a more generic, your credit card size single board computer look and feel to it.
Are you able to hold boards up by chance? I have my board wall over here. Should I get my board wall out?
Sure.
Yeah, let me grab my board. There you go. So
Yeah,
if
so
you have
that's
some,
a CE. That's the Dragon Board 410C. That's the consumer edition spec.
yeah, so you can see like the consumer edition spec. It has its low speed header on the top. It's high speed header, which is the white one there down bottom middle. It has a couple USB ports, HDMI, SD card slot, power adapter, and then there are certain areas on this particular spec, like there's kind of open areas where you can show off the secret sauce of your chipset. So yeah, that's a consumer edition. Yes, the David talking the board wall, the infamous board wall. Yes, I might be able to bring that up in just a second here. So let's now move on to Enterprise Edition.
So Enterprise Edition, as it says, mostly networking chipsets, workstation chipsets, anything that cannot be physically fit into your consumer edition spec. And requires larger ports. Maybe it's ATX, maybe it's a bunch of SATA ports, PCIe card slots. So something that takes a lot more area and is not constrained by, you know, constrained in terms of cost, basically. So these are going to be expensive ports.
At least more expensive than the consumer ones, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. And they're also bigger. So the spec calls for a bigger footprint. Now we're moving on to IoT Edition.
Yeah, so IoT Edition is basically the carbon board I showed you earlier, and I just showed it to you, and I've forgotten where I have put it.
It's okay. You know what? Give me 1 sec, Sahaj. I'm gonna pull out my board wall here.
Sure.
Okay. Here we go. All right. So I can't pull up the board wall. I'll give you a little view here, but that's the board wall that I'm talking about. Okay. I have my little original Linux Mall penguin tux up here. But so yeah, let's pull this up like this. So the consumer edition boards, as you can see, they're all lined up here, right? And they all follow the same spec, but they have different chipsets. Ignore the Raspberry Pi for a moment, right? I mean, don't ignore it, but it's just not part of the spec. Okay, so you have all these consumer edition boards, but we didn't mention that consumer edition also has an extended version.
Extended port, yeah.
Yeah, so these are the extended versions of the consumer edition, and if you look at it very carefully, this bottom half of the consumer edition extended is actually identical in most cases to what the standard consumer edition board looks like. And so if you go with the extended, of course you have a bigger footprint, but for the most part you're following the consumer edition, and then you get to add more components, add more things that might be able to showcase, again, the secret sauce that your chipsets offer. Touching on the IoT edition, because that's where we were at, and I have some enterprise, just to give you an idea of the footprint for the enterprise edition. That's the enterprise edition down there.
Yeah, some rare ones.
Yeah, some rare ones. Some of them are just paperweights now. Like I think this was the cello. This doesn't even work. This is just a burnt out board, but I kept it just for nostalgia. So these ones up here are the IoT edition boards.
Yeah.
So you can see the difference in size. These are IoT. Some of these are IoT mezzanines. This is an IoT board. This is an IoT board. I think I have there was one called like the the Uranus. Did that one get scrapped? There was a Uranus board, believe it or not. Then there's the carbon, the nitrogen. There's all sorts of different boards there. So you get an idea that when you're looking at these, you have a pretty standard layout that allows you to build an ecosystem around that. Let's bring Sahaj back in here. So that being said, Sahaj, let's talk about this ecosystem and why it's important, right? Because you have these boards that follow a standardized footprint. What does that allow people to do?
You can basically add your own mezzanines to any one of the board, whether it's mezzanines or cases. The footprint remains the same. So if you're testing a bunch of sensors and you want to see which board or which SOC vendor gives you the best performance, it's just plug and play. All the pinouts remain the same. All the voltage levels remain the same. So it's just basically if it's all user land code, you don't even have to port your code. And if it's kernel code, you just have to port basic stuff in your code. And it's very easy to transfer your project between different vendors.
Yeah. So let's kind of compare this, because you get questions like this, right? With when you're going around comparing 96 boards to like Raspberry Pi and stuff, right? Well, Raspberry Pi, for the most part, it's a standard chipset, right? Like it has its chipset and it evolves over time, but for the most part, it's the same chipset. Now, when you go to the 96 boards line of products, you can have a Qualcomm chipset, and then the same footprint could host a NXP chipset, and that same footprint could hold an Action Semis chipset, or so on and so forth, right? And so you have all these different chipsets, like this one right here, which is the one that Sahaj showed, which is the Dragon Board 410C. You could take a mezzanine right here, and you can plug this mezzanine on top of the Dragon Board 410C. It'll clip right into the high speed and low speed header. But then I could also pull out the high keyboard. Wait, this is
Yep.
this is the Helio
MediaTek
X20.
one. Yeah.
This is actually the MediaTek one. So you
Yeah.
could also pull out the MediaTek board. I could pull the mezzanine off of my Dragon Board 410C, and I can use this exact same mezzanine on the MediaTek board, and it will, again, just simply plug right back into that board. And so you're able to kind of build this hardware ecosystem around these specs. And so I think that's really cool. Let's bring this back up here. Sorry. Remove. How do I bring this back? Add to stream. So we talked about mezzanines, and there are more specs here. So the SOM Edition. Let's talk about that one.
SOM Edition. Yeah. I have my SOM board. Actually, I'm working on it currently. So this is our SOM board, and you can basically plug it out. And I have a proper example of it, why it's necessary. So with the SOM board, you get the SOM board, and instead of doing your new product from scratch, from the SOC and up, the SOM provides you storage, it provides you memory, it provides you power management. So all you have to do is just build a peripheral around it on a simple PCB. The designs are simpler, and just you can put this particular SOM in there. So I was testing a few things, and I have a very good example. This is a project that we've been working on for a while. If you've heard about the 96 Boards drone project or followed that, this is the next iteration of it. We are now working with Gumsticks on a drone board. So this is a drone base board. You can actually attach the SOM module right on it, like that. Now here's the best part. You can take where did I keep that? Why do I keep? Yeah, there it is.
It's maybe in that big pile of stuff you got back there.
So you can take the FMU from Pixoc. That is a SOM as well, not our spec. That's their spec. That's separate. But you can merge the two spec on this particular board, and now you have the 96 boards providing the high level compute, and you have the big SOC providing all your flight capabilities. So you have a flight control unit, you have a full computer on board. You can do all your machine learning, your vision, your AI on flight like you want, and this entire thing. Ignore the large heat sink, that's just overcompensating. But you can have this entire thing on a drone flying in the air. So again, that's one of the use cases, because Gumsticks doesn't have to design, um, the all the components around the CPU or around the SOC. They can sort of manufacture this board really fast, and you get all the capabilities. We also have a place for NVMe drive. So where is I just kept it? What's happening to my calculator? Yeah, there it is. So I have the NVMe drive on the test board right there, and that also plugs in. So yeah, that's the ease of using a SOM board. The turnaround times for your new board is really quick, and you can do cool stuff like this. You can just plug things in.
That is awesome. And you mentioned Gumsticks a few times. I want to just share this. We did an episode with Keith Lee of Gumsticks. So you can go check that one out at your leisure. And if you want to learn more about Gumsticks, and Sahaj just mentioned that they're working together, you can go check that out.
Yeah, actually, Keith and I will be talking at the PX4 Dev Summit
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I mean, Sahaj,
about this board. Yeah.
if you want to provide us with a link to that session, we can put it in later.
So like sessions have not been announced yet.
That's all right.
But
When you're ready, feel free to provide it to us, and we
Yep,
can put it
sure.
into the description of this video. Okay, cool. So now we got to talk about the differences between these specs, and there are a few of them. I'm curious now, because something that I was working on along with you, you mentioned Yang, which was the director of 96Boards, and several other people in Linaro, all of the partners, steering committee, was the Consumer Edition 2.0 specification. So this is a long time
Yeah,
in the works. Getting all of this approval from the steering committee and finding out which updates can go forward. Sahaj, tell us about the 2.0 spec. Did it finally happen, and what is it?
it finally happened. I have it on my desk.
All right.
There are
Look
the
at
new
that. Wow.
boards.
Beautiful.
So let me actually just turn around, because that is a separate desk. Um, so there they are. Let's talk about. So we have different specs this time for CE extended, which is this one, and the regular CE, which is this one. So on the on the regular CE, let's just talk about this. We have taken a lot of feedback from the community. Two of the major things that were requested, we were able to fulfill. Onboard Ethernet as a part of the spec. So every CE2 board will have an onboard Ethernet. You don't have to deal with dongles anymore. And onboard UART. So there will be a debug UART on all the CEV2 boards. You don't have to deal with the UART mezzanine. Your mezzanine space is completely free, even if you want to use the serial console. Earlier, you needed to have a UART mezzanine. Um, Apart from that, it's pretty much the same and backwards compatible, apart from this little header, and that provides audio, well, whether it's via analog audio. So we have dedicated pins for direct analog audio from the chip, or I2S, and we have dedicated pins for that. So that's a separate audio header. That's sort of a design idea we took from Dragon boards, which used to have separate analog headers right there. uh, the design is completely backwards compatible with CE1, uh, 1.0, and the real party piece of CE 2.0 comes in the larger form factor, where because you have the space to basically move the sock towards the backside of the board, towards the extended part. You actually get another high speed header, and this one actually has PCIe, a couple of lanes, and USB 3 on it, amongst other things. So we've added more SPI, more UART, but mostly PCI and USB 3. That's an upgrade from the old USB 2, so you can actually break out or have direct communication via USB 3 and PCI onto your mezzanines. On this particular board, we have two Ethernets, two, yeah, completely separate. So it's two Ethernet PHY, and you can have dual LAN on it. An RTC at the bottom, couple of PCI slots of different sorts. So that's E key and M key. As far as I can correctly remember, PCI keys are very confusing. So this particular kind is mostly, so E keys are mostly for your Wi-Fi cards, and M keys are great for M.2 SSDs over NVMe. Um, and Yeah, so I'll talk a bit more detail. Again, even this design, the low speed is low speed, and low speed 2 is the same, and high speed 2 does not interfere with your regular mezzanine. So you can have CE V1 mezzanine on there, and you can just use that mezzanine. It will work just fine. Going on a bit more details, both of these boards were designed by Beachy. And the first one is the is powered by the Rockchip RV1126 SoC. So it's a very low power SoC, mainly focused towards camera and vision AI. It has four Cortex A7 cores, so you don't the use case doesn't expect you to use a lot of compute. It has a hardware decoding and encoding, and and onboard vision AI IP. So everything that's done is done by accelerators, and so yeah, very low power vision specific board. And the second one is a RK33, sorry, 3586. So this is a bit more compute heavy. Also has your dedicated NPU. So Cortex A55 up to 2 gigahertz. And again, a bunch of PCIe slots. That's what I love about it. I think that's what also makes David jealous that I have this board right now. Um,
David wants one. Are we talking about
yeah,
David Tischler,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the one and
He's,
only?
Yeah, he wanted one with this sock because it has a bit better PCIe
So I failed to
interface.
mention. Sahaj is one of our ARM innovators, and so is David. And so yes, along with them being, obviously good members of the ARM developer community, they are also ARM innovators, and so they do get to interact at another level. Interesting.
Yeah. And one more minor thing we changed in CE Extended V2 was the barrel jack. So the barrel jack is now not your average one that's used in Arduino, instead of the smaller one we have. So the smaller one, the 4.7 one, stays
On the
on the
original spec.
smaller board. Yeah, on the original spec and the CE non-extended one. So you
Okay.
usually need a converter like this. But on the larger one, we just wanted it easier to get um, the cables for, because the 4.7 ones were a bit harder to find. We were able to free up enough space to actually have a proper barrel jack and make that work. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So
Uh,
was space one of the primary reasons not adding the kind of more standard barrel jack to the
Exactly,
smaller?
exactly. Because also we need to take care of the mezzanine height, and
Yeah.
a larger jack would have violated that,
Yeah.
because it's much closer to the low speed header. In this case, we can just clear it out completely. In this case, we have larger power budget as well. We can add larger capacitors and everything.
Yeah, because the mezzanine doesn't cover that side of the board, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Very nice. Cool. All right, so let's bring this back up. So, was there anything else you wanted to cover around the 2.0 spec? Hello, sorry. Sahaj? Maybe we lost
Hello.
you. Hey, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know. Did we lose you or did we lose me? Because
Oh
my
shoot, it might
network
have been
was
me.
good.
I don't know. Either way, we can hear each other now, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So was there anything else you wanted to cover around the 2.0 spec before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, a small thing, not related specifically to the boat, so I'll just come back to my regular place.
Welcome to the
Um,
land of the living.
yeah, we will be very soon opening up the spec to a GitHub repository. As soon as I get a bit more time to just push it and finish it. Um, then
Okay,
we'll
so
have the spec on a GitHub repository where people will able to open up issues and correct the spec if they see a typo via pull request, suggest updates, and we are planning to do incremental updates as well.
perfect. Perfect. That's good to know. That's good to know. So your camera's still not back on you. Were you trying to get that switched over?
Oh, that's on me. I am. I was so used to you switching the camera,
I know, right?
and I forgot that I have to do it
There you go.
because
All right,
it's
cool.
on my end.
Yeah, I can see you again. So good to know. Yeah, that was actually something that we were pushing for a long time. The specs were originally released in the form of a PDF. And so that PDF was hosted. And if you wanted to get something changed, it was actually really hard. So now my question for this, since you mentioned it, is are these going to be like markdown versions on a GitHub, or are they still going to be on a PDF that you can open issues on, or can
No,
people
no, no.
actually
So
submit?
these will be in restructured text, so
Okay,
sort of markdown, not entirely, but more friendly towards PDF. They, it's just a simple make command, and it builds you an HTML version of the spec. So it's a proper web page with hyperlinks and
very
a full
nice.
blown PDF.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, restructured. I remember they were using that stuff for the device tree
Yeah,
documentation
for
as
the
well.
EBBR, that's that. I
Yeah,
just cloned that and made it on it.
very nice.
Because I think that's what Mani was doing, and then we decided not to go forward with it for V1 spec, V1 spec, and then it was like, all right, we'll have a V2 spec soon, so we can work on that.
How is Money doing, by the way?
Oh, Mani is doing great.
Is
He's
he still
still,
there?
yeah, he's still there, still working on Qualcomm stuff on the. I think there are five. He's doing something with the 5G chipset, making all of that upstreamed. Like the only guy who I'd think of who would convince Qualcomm to upstream their 5G and communication stuff.
How about that? Yeah,
Money, yeah.
Money's awesome. Yeah, I mean, so back in the day, right? Like Money, when I first started at 96 boards, like it was very clear, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, uh, you kind of have to wear many hats, right? Eventually I was able to convince some people to give me some support, right? We needed some support. So Mani came into the picture. We ended up hiring Mani on the 96 boards team, and we had him doing kind of like applications engineering stuff, but he just loved the low level kernel development upstream, working in the upstream, doing stuff like that. And so he was able to eventually convince everyone that he should be doing that, which was awesome. He moved over to that. Sahaj was like beating out all of our support team, all of our engineers at Linaro on the forums. He was like killing it. We look at the forums and the stats on the forums, and Sahaj was like number one across the board. So we were like, we have to get Sahaj on the team. And so sure enough, there you go. Sahaj got hired because of just his immense contributions to 96 boards community as a community member, which is pretty awesome. And that's just so cool. You're still here, like, years later. So that's awesome. I want to move on to the next question here. Streaming. Does the steering committee plan to revamp any of the other specs, right? Because they did the 2.0 spec for community edition, consumer edition. Are they exploring any revamps for the enterprise edition or IoT?
So I'm pretty sure if we were to handle something, if we were to revamp, it would be the enterprise spec. It's been kind of confusing where, you can see a lot of TV boards out there as well. So, you expect something like a TV V2 or enterprise V2 to come out soon.
Okay.
But that might also take a bit more time, since we are mostly now focused on sort of getting the CEV2 out of the pipeline completely, and add more boards, and especially create more mezzanines, because I want to see what people have to want to do with USB 3 and PCIe on the high speed header.
Okay, cool. Good to hear. Good to hear. At least you're exploring it. That's nice to hear the steering committee's working on it. Now, I want to transition over to mezzanines. Now, we kind of touched on it when we were showing all those boards, the hardware compatibility and everything. Mezzanines are akin to what Arduino people might call shields, and what Raspberry Pi people call hats. Mezzanines are kind of like that extra layer of hardware that you can put on to add more functionality to your original device. Now, are there any cool mezzanines that, and you know what, we kind of skipped it, so let's do a double whammy here. Are there any cool new mezzanines, and are there any cool new 96 boards that are running up in the mix here that I haven't seen yet? Because I know you showed one there. It looked like an extended 2.0 version with a rock chip on there.
Yeah.
Are there any other cool 96 boards and mezzanines that you can show us?
So I can show a couple of new camera mezzanines. I can share my screen. Can I share a window?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
when you share it, we'll be able to bring it into the scene here. Our executive producer behind the scenes, she's got it under control.
So these are this is the ShareTech Camera One mezzanine. It uses a standardized connector that onsemi uses, and so you can, so in the future there will be a lot of new sensor modules that will be released for this mezzanine. So all you have to do is just remove the sensor module and add a new one, and this will have 4K up to 30 frames per second, 1080p up to 60 frames per second. But there is actually another. So we have two camera modules. The second one is more interesting because when you are doing a lot of inferencing, you don't need a huge amount of resolution because that always gets cut down. But what can help is a lot of frames in a second. So we have one that does 240 frames a second at 720p, and I think that's one of the sort of selling point for this one is high fps, low resolution on a larger sensor, so you get more light in. So this is the one. The Arrow is working on another one, which is in the pipelines, which has an onboard image signal processing. So this is specifically made for the Avenger 96. In a case where you don't have image processor on the SOC, um, doing it in software can be very taxing. So we have a separate mezzanine that does it for you and then streams the video feed through the camera interface on the high speed header. Next one is another mezzanine on from the automotive grade side. Again, a vision one, so a camera based one. This is something that's super high end, and very expensive. I've held the camera that this mezzanine connects to. Those are called GMSL, or I think gigabit, um, like, yeah, gigabit serial link. Um, and the cameras of these are super high quality. They're encased completely sealed, and they're tiny and they're heavy, and they cost a whole lot. So this is mezzanine to interface that sort of a camera with it. So it uses coax cables. So again, it's a serial link, just needs one wire. So it has a coax cable to connect it to the main mezzanine, and it's basically just to interface with high speed and automotive grade cameras onto our boards.
Very nice. This is awesome. You've got some cool stuff coming out. I'm glad to see that you're still working with Shiratech too. They make some really
Yeah.
solid products. Nice. Okay. So thanks for sharing that. Did we miss anything? Did we cut you off? You have anything else to share?
Yeah, there's a board in the works. I have it, but I can't show you. Hey, hey.
Super surprise.
But yeah,
What a
um,
tease.
so that's one. But that one is by Samsung. It has a proper Exynos sock on there.
Wait, did you say
Uh,
Samsung?
yeah, they
Ooh,
are
okay.
now a member, a Linaro member.
Very
So
nice.
yeah, so that will be coming out soon. We are working on the software.
That is
Hopefully,
very
once
exciting.
that's good. Yeah.
Very exciting. Cool. So that being said, I'm looking at the time here and I'm like, wow, it's already 53 minutes past the hour and we have 7 minutes left. I did not expect it to go so fast. Um, so I want to make sure we get all of these last minute things out of the way before we have to close this out. Um, Sahaj, Linaro, as we mentioned, hosts a event 2 times a year called Linaro Connect. And at Linaro Connect, you can do all sorts of stuff. It's focused primarily, I want to say, on like open source. It has a very open sourced and Linux theme,
Yeah.
as well as I feel that ARM, it has a very heavy presence there as well.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a little bit more about this event? And I know you have one coming up, I think, soon. Didn't you have a call for papers recently?
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll hand you the floor. Tell us a little bit about Linaro Connect and how people or developers who are watching this might be able to participate or just join and register and watch it.
Yeah, so the CFP for the next Connect sadly has closed, but you can still register. Registrations will open August 3rd, and you can register there. The event goes from September 8th to the 10th. Of course, it's all online, which is very sad. Makes me.
I know Linaro
Because-
Connect was like that
yeah,
event I looked for. I looked forward to Linaro Connects like every single 6 months. I
yeah,
was just
because
like, this
like
is awesome.
everyone at Leonor look forward to that connect to connect so much that their development cycle basically synced. Everyone, so here's what happens at Connect. You basically put a lot of work during 6 months, and then you go at Connect and you give bunch of talks and tell people about your work. That's
Yeah.
that's basically what happens. But no, in a bit more detail, it's a nice place where vendors and developers collaborate. They collaborate on open source strategies. Everyone has, as I said, Linaro is that sort of a stage where a lot of vendors have the varying bits of ideas to do the same thing, and then they come together, develop a common solution on how to implement it, whether it's in the Linux kernel or any other open source project. And sort of Linaro Connect was that physical place where you could talk to and like sit around, discuss, um, and show in presentations what's happening and what's yet to come, and take a lot of feedback, take a lot of ideas back home, and work on it for the next 6 months over and over again. It was a very happy place for a lot of people.
It was also, I agree with everything you just said, but it was also a great place to kind of exchange hardware. Like I feel that
Yeah,
everyone kind of brought
yeah.
hardware in. The partners brought hardware, the developers
We've
all brought hardware, and we all were just like, "Hey, I have 3 of these. You need one? Cool, take it home."
man.
That was
Okay.
fun.
Uh,
Yeah.
let me search for a photo, but like really, I have personally taken back a Commodore 64, an ARM Seattle server.
Dang. Yeah, I mean, Sahaj, you have no idea. Like again, I'm looking at the time here. I was like, I had so many other things I wanted to cover today. Like I wanted to talk. We didn't even talk about open hours. I mean, open hours. Like Sahaj and I hosted another live stream for years together that we ran, and open hours is still running. You're still
Yeah.
running open hours, right?
Yeah, it's mostly offline because I want a lot of community participation.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have open hours regularly. We talk about a lot of 96 board stuff, and if there's not a whole lot of 96 board stuff, then we talk about ARM and tech in general.
And so, since we talked about it here, we're going to make sure that we include the open hours link. It's 96boards.org/open hours still, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can still go there. We'll make sure we include that link in the description. But again, gosh, it's just like I had so many things. I had some clips I wanted to use to talk to you about from open hours episodes. I had some pictures I wanted to share, but maybe we'll have to just do a separate episode later, and we'll do a in open hours, 96 boards, open hours, innovation, coffee merger. And we'll do some episode to talk to focus on open hours and kind of
We
celebrate
can
that.
do like a 2-hour stream, 4 p.m. UTC and up to 6 p.m. UTC.
There we go. Yeah, because yours starts at 4,
Yeah,
ours
yeah,
starts
yeah,
at 5. So we could just
yeah.
kind of continue on and do it that way. That'd be a lot of fun. So Sahaj, before we close this out, I want to just make sure we address the questions that came in through the chat. And I'm going to scroll all the way up and get back to the first question here. And this comes from, I believe it was David W. Yes, right here. What was your biggest magic smoke or drone rover gone wrong moment?
Ooh, it was during open hours. And I'm pretty sure it's David's favorite moment, and that's why he's bringing it up. Yeah, we had a problem with a particular mezzanine's design, where if you provide power from the baseboard onto the mezzanine, it would burn up unless the mezzanine has its own power. Um, it had issues. So I'm sitting there giving a demo. The drone's on the desk. The same camera that I've shown you today. Same setup, and I plug in the power, and things flicker for a second, and I'm like, "Huh, what happened there?" And poof, smoke, fire, entire room fills up,
Fire?
and there was a bit of fire that didn't get caught up at the particular power IC, because it was a lipo, so it saw a short and it just pumped 40 amps in.
Wow. That's
So,
crazy. So there
yeah,
you go,
it
David.
just burned. Yeah.
That's the one. This, I think, is a question for me. And I'm just going to address it really quickly. Another one from David W. Can you say anything about a possible future that may involve devs having access to multiple hosted boards for testing? So I think I've brought this up a few times during this show. You may have heard whispers about it in our Discord server. Again, we'll post that in a minute. But this particular program, we have something already within the ARM software dev ecosystem called Works on ARM. So you can actually go to the developer.arm.com/solutions/infrastructure/works on ARM. Though you're not going to remember that. I'll post it here in a second. But the Works on ARM program, we're going to be adding Works on ARM program mostly focuses on server cloud infrastructure and how you can get access to various various devices, but more on the cloud server side of things. We're launching a new program, and just going to be very vague here, around DevSummit, and you'll know a lot more of it by then. But this will be more focused on edge devices, single board computers, and it is going to be ARM subsidized. So this is a great opportunity for developers to get access to, let's say, just kind of more standard consumer edition type hardware for you to test and build stuff out remotely. So I'm working with David Tischler, who was mentioned earlier. We're working with David Tischler. We're working with Mini Nodes, and just keep your eyes on DevSummit, because that's around the time frame that you'll be hearing about that more. So thank you, David, for the question. And yes, we do plan on supporting developers in a much, much bigger way with things like that. Scrolling down. I think I saw one more question around here. Is this from Carlo? Did I miss one? Okay, this is the last question. I think this one's for you here. Sahaj, can you or anyone recommend a board to host a matrix server? At the moment, I'm considering a Pi, but would like to explore something new. Are you able to answer that one, Sahaj?
Yeah. Depending on how much your load is, you might just want to grab, if you can, a Dragon board or an RB3. The reason I say that is that one has an onboard gigabit LAN, and it's actually really fast. It's like proper gigabit. And it has onboard eMMC storage. SD cards usually wear out really quick, and that's sort of my main complaints with some of the other boards. So I think something around those lines should be good. And RB3 has guaranteed updates for many years to come. Um,
Yeah, the RB3 is a great platform, by the way.
Yeah.
I know the engineer actually who designed this. He is just a genius. I think one time we were sitting. It was in Vancouver. We were
Mhm.
sitting in a conference room, and the steering committee and a bunch of people were talking about how to redesign this consumer specification. And this engineer sits there, I think it was like with a napkin and a pen, and literally redesigns the entire spec just by hand really quickly, takes it back to his hotel room, builds the entire spec like while he's on this trip at a Linaro Connect, comes back the next day. We go back to the conference room, and like he like redid the entire spec like in a day. It was pretty amazing. And I think a lot of his ideas made it into the 2.0, right?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. That being said, we are at the top of the hour now, Sahaj, and I'm so sad, but we do have to call it. So this is your opportunity for the shameless plug. Is there anything, call to action you'd like to let our viewers and those watching on demand know?
Yeah, the only thing, check out Leonor Connect. And if you're interested in some of my old personal projects, I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/Sahaj Sarup. And yeah, that's about it. That's where I post a lot of non 96 boards related content, maybe some of non ARM but other tech content. So yeah, check that out.
There, I found the link here. We'll put it here. Sahaj Sarup, YouTube. Want to make sure we get it into the comments there. It's youtube.com/user/Sahaj Sarup. And that is Geek Till It Hurts. Pretty cool name. Nice channel. And yeah, you do a lot of really cool stuff there. A lot of cool hardware review. So yeah, Sahaj, gosh, it's just such a pleasure. I want to give you a big hug. I want to, see you in person. I hope everything's going well. Thank you for joining us. Your time.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you in person as well. I can't wait to see a lot of people in person as well.
It's gonna be a shock, and it's gonna be an amazing time. We're gonna have a whole 2 years probably to catch up on. We'll sit back with some coffees in the morning and some beers in the afternoon, and we'll reminisce on the old times and talk about the new times ahead. So thank you for joining us. All of you watching, thank you so much for joining us. We know your time is very valuable, and we appreciate you spending your hour here with us. Don't forget to follow the channel. If you like the video, make sure you hit that like button. Once again, Sahaj, thank you so much. And
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure having you. Take care. All have a good day.
Bye.